What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Night of the Living Dead, directed by George A. Romero, co-written by Romero and Jean Russo. Night of the Living Dead is a very culturally significant movie, as this movie is often considered to be the first real zombie movie in which the creatures are represented as an actual threat and are flesh-eating creatures that we all know them to be. And also, Living Dead, The Night of the Living Dead also has the distinction of having, being one of the first few movies to have a black actor in the lead role. So this movie broke a lot of barriers when it was made back in 1968. But taking all that stuff away and just looking at Night of the Living Dead as a movie itself, it's good. I thought Night of the Living Dead was, it was a good movie. It's a decent, zombie horror movie. Now, listen. When it comes to the zombie genre of movies, I don't really care for them. I like maybe a handful of zombie movies. They're just a subgenre that I never really got into. I don't hate them, I just don't care for them. And with that being said, I never really got around to watching the Romero movies, which I know, when you're a lifelong horror fan, saying that you never watched the Romero zombie movies is like sacrilegious. So the whole intent of going through the whole intent of watching Night of the Living Dead and the rest of the Romero series is to finally say, hey, listen, I watched them all, and I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on how I think about all of them. So let's start with the first one, naturally. In terms of this movie as a story, this movie doesn't really have a story. It's simple. These 5 strangers are locked in a farmhouse, and they have to band together and survive the zombie outbreak. It's that simple. Now, it's what Romero did with that simple premise is what makes this movie stand out. As I mentioned before, you have this is the first movie to have a black lead as the hero of the piece, and you have Dwayne Jones, who plays the role, fairly well. The one thing I'm going to say with it. The one thing I'm going to say about this movie and what I urge people to do is do not watch this movie for the acting, because if you're watching this movie for performances and standouts, you're not going to get it with Night of the Living Dead. That's not what this movie's about. That's not what George Romero set out to make with this film. Like, the characters, there's really nothing really that to write about. The only 3 that stand out are Dwayne Jones as Ben, because he's a black lead and he's the hero of the piece, and he's the one that takes charge and tries to keep everyone together. There's the character of Barbara, who appears in the beginning of the movie with her brother Johnny, and these are the first 2 characters to be attacked by one of the ghouls, as the film calls them. And this married couple with a daughter, with the husband just having a very dickish attitude, and comes into conflict with Ben over leadership of said group. Those are the only 3 characters that really stand out, and the feud between Ben and the other guy and the husband, that's another subplot that you have to pay attention to. Everything else in terms of what these characters have to offer, very bare bones, very basic. Here's the deal. The performances are good enough to make you believe that the situation they're facing is a legitimate threat, and that's basically all you need. Where this movie thrives is with the production and what George Romero was able to do with a very, very limited budget. This movie, from a technical aspect, this is the blueprint for what Romero would use in the rest of his movies that I've seen. The man knows how to create biting tension. The man knows how to create suspense. He knows how to make a situation feel realistic and threatening. And he does that perfectly with this movie. And he does it perfectly with the ghouls, these flesh-eating monsters who are mindless and just walk around aimlessly, killing whatever they see just because there's nothing else. If you're in their way, they take you out of the way. And that's basically it. This movie's use of special effects for its time, groundbreaking. This was one of the very few movies that you see gore, where you see limbs being eaten, where you see people being viciously stabbed, where you see blood being splattered on the screen. Like, everyone says that the 1970s was like the golden age of horror cinema, but I think you gotta give the 60s a lot of credit, because the 60s laid the groundwork for what was to come in the 70s. You got movies like this, like Peeping Tom and Psycho, that set that grounded realism. And that's something that the 70s took and expanded upon more. But the 60s laid the groundwork. And not only that, what also makes this movie culturally significant is that it was one of the very few independent movies to really strike big. And that's what Night of the Living Dead did. It struck big because it was groundbreaking. It was different. It was one of those horror movies that felt real. It felt that it could happen in real life. And throughout the course of the movie, Romero puts in these scenes of television and radio where the people are pretty much are giving exposition as to what's going on around the rest of the world, what these ghouls are, how they came in, theories of how they came to be, and pockets of people all around the country, banding together to form posses to fight them off. And throughout the course of the movie, Romero gives these little bits on how to stop these creatures. He gives little bits on how they came to be, in a way. And it was great. You're giving exhibition in the form of news reports and radio reports, so that way the characters who are sheltered can get some sort of view of what the outside world looks like. And of course, you have the very dark and iconic ending of all these characters being shot dead, including Ben, who gets killed by a posse, being mistaken as a ghoul himself. Now, if you want to put a little social commentary on this, you can paint it as the white man not feeling that the black man should be a hero for anything, and gets put down like everyone else does. Like, that's Romero putting in his social commentary, which is something that he's been very good at, which is something that he's very good at doing. I think there are times where Romero can be a little bit too on the nose with his social commentary, and the subtlety becomes more like in your face. But I think in this movie, you kind of get a combination of both, and you can kind of put two and two together. So that was good for what it was. In terms of everything else this movie has to offer, like I said, in terms of its cast, all the actors do what they're required to do. If I gotta give a weak link, I'm gonna give it to the actress who plays Barbara. I found Barbara to be kind of annoying in a lot of scenes. Like, I didn't really care for it. For her, as I should say. But the one scene that I do like, so the married couple, the husband and the wife, they have a little girl named Karen who was bitten by one of the ghouls, and she's being treated in the cellar. According to the husband, the cellar is the safest place to be. That's where they've been the entire time when Barbara finds this farmhouse at the beginning of the movie. Karen eventually turns into a ghoul, and you have this very chilling scene where she eats her dad, turns him into a ghoul, and then she violently stabs her mom also. It's a chilling scene because not only did Romero kill a child, Romero turned a child into one of the villains, and it was brilliantly done, expertly directed, and just flat out raw, creepy, and just something that you can't believe that you're seeing. Like I said, again, this movie may have some faults in certain departments, but what it put on screen was different for the time, and you gotta give Romero applause for having the balls to do something different that's not been done before. And Night of the Living Dead is proof of a movie that is looking to be original and different, and it works for the most part. Like, it works. I like the overall look of the ghouls themselves. They have, the first zombies, if you will. They have like this very just eerie creepiness to them. The way they move, the way they walk, the fact that they don't talk or do anything. They just move like mindless, like empty husks of human beings, and it's bone chilling. Like if this was a real life situation, and you're living in a rural area, which is the predominant setting of this movie, and you see hordes of these things walking towards you, yeah, you're gonna get creeped out, and it's unsettling, and I like it a lot. It's good stuff. So yeah, those are basically my thoughts on Night of the Living Dead. At the end of the day, I'm gonna give this movie a solid. Gonna give it a solid 8. Yeah. Nah, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Night of the Living Dead to me is a 7 out of 10. It does have some flaws. It's not all the way perfect, but where it lacks in some areas, it makes up for it in a lot of areas. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Night of the Living Dead. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.